We keep on talking about regional integration, and we see it in the form of SADC, the East African Community, ECOWAS. But the more we do, the more disconnected they are. Why is that?
Evening, Lerato. I think this has to do with the challenges that we have in Africa, which are embedded in the colonial legacy, that we inherited from colonialism. Also together, it's embedded on the practice of democratic governance and the challenges that it poses, particularly to some of the regimes that we have on the continent.
Mr. Allen, just your views on this one. One of the proposals that was put forward at the recent World Economic Forum on Africa is probably to get SADC, COMESA, the East African Community, to work together, to be harmonized. Some people say it would be cumbersome, it would be redundant, and it would be repetitive.
Okay, well, actually, I am a member of the tripartite group, and I was just at a meeting in Lusaka. They're actually working very hard to streamline procedures and processes to facilitate regional economic integration between the three regional economic communities. It's a monumental task, but there are some serious champions involved that my organization, TradeMark East Africa, and others are supporting. So I'm relatively confident that despite the difficulties, in the long run, I think this will happen.
Just your views on this, Scott Allen. Many businesses have said that, for them it's so difficult because trade policy is not harmonized across regional economic communities. And once you start talking about a bigger amalgam where you now mix together EAC, COMESA, SADC, it's going to become even more complicated. People never really know what the rules of the game are.
Well, part of the issue is to define the rules of the game and to make sure that everything is transparent and easily understood. Once you get large groups together, you have many actors involved. I've worked with SADC, COMESA, and the East African Community. However, I believe that by focusing on key outputs and targets, they can minimize the usual long-term negotiations required for a free trade agreement and other levels of regional economic integration.
Dr. Maphosa, your views on this one. If we just look at the Southern African Customs Union, which is a dimension of the political union of SADC, there is a feeling that South Africa, being the largest economy, often bears the brunt and the pressure of financing some of these other economies through its own earnings on customs and import duties, and that to a large extent these regional bodies are carried by the larger economies, Kenya in East Africa, South Africa in SADC, and both SACU.
There's no way that South Africa can escape that, because these contributions are determined by the economic base of a country and the size of its population. So South Africa is a powerhouse in Southern African region. Indeed, it has to contribute more than the other states.
I don't know, what do you think of this one, Scott Allen, in terms of the hegemons really providing the impetus for some of these successful projects? And you refer to free trade agreements. That's been a huge issue of contention in Southern Africa, because some countries feel that they need to pursue independent free trade agreements with Europe, whereas others feel that shouldn't be the case.
Okay, well, I think it's an important issue of looking at market size. There are a variety of factors that make regional economic integration important. I use the example in East Africa that if you take the entire economic output of East Africa, it's roughly equivalent to that of Croatia. The economic output of Kenya is roughly equivalent to that of Fairfax County, Virginia, in the United States. They need to work together to harmonize procedures and laws in trade policy, taxation, labor, immigration, security, etc. Then they will have a stronger negotiating position in the global economy.
What about issues of trade finance? The African development banks often mention this as a big limitation, is that even if the regional authorities were to get it together in terms of harmonizing laws, there's still the question of local producers getting their goods into that market. And one of the biggest impediments is trade finance and just the financial support to really access markets?
No, that's true. And there have been a number of initiatives, but they haven't worked very well. I'm not a trade finance expert, but I do, your earlier commenter was talking about the importance of public-private partnerships, particularly in infrastructure. And that's a tool that can be replicated and built on.
What do you make of people who talk about aid for trade? That's very needed. We don't need aid for social problems. We need aid to really facilitate the opening up of trade corridors and supporting entrepreneurs to produce more to provide the regional economy.
Indeed, that's, that's one of the way forward to mitigate the problems that we face on the continent. Indeed, we need aid for trade that will enhance small-scale and medium-scale business to expand, and also to create a beneficiation of raw materials such that we can compete equally with the developed world. And also, we in the continent, those countries that are less developed and have resources, they are able to compete, particularly with countries like South Africa, where there is a well-developed manufacturing industry.
I'm glad you mentioned manufacturing. Scott Allen, your views on this one. You mentioned productivity of labor, and we're told this is where Africa is lacking. We are not working fast enough, we're not working smart enough, and we're not producing enough. So even if regional bodies were to get it together, we just don't have dynamic enough products to be selling in these markets.
Well, the issue about regional economic integration is that you allow foreign investment, for example, and you use capital that's in the region already. The idea is to create economic efficiency and improve productivity. Trade is essential for economic growth. And for East Africa and Sub-Saharan Africa in general to achieve sustainable, real economic growth and reduce poverty, they're going to have to increase their levels of trade. Now, when they do that, they create new economic opportunities which will employ labor.
Right.
There are situations in many countries now where there are thousands of university graduates that cannot get employment. Yeah. We need to create jobs, and I believe we can do that through regional economic integration if it's managed properly.
Incentivizing investment both for foreigners and locals. Some countries are experimenting with industrial development zones. I know South Africa's got a few in the pipeline to try to have a concentrated space where foreign capital can engender some kind of a manufacturing base, local employment, and easy access to ports or airports to get the goods to market.
That's excuse me. Indeed, it's a very positive step towards it, but however the challenge always comes with it that sometimes when this foreign aid comes in, it also brings in its foreign labor force, and that denies the locals the opportunities to grow and participate in the economy.
Okay, final question. We've run out of time, Scott Allen. In terms of labor, does regional integration and the free flow of people not also open us up to security risks?
Not necessarily. Actually, it may be to the contrary. The tripartite group, which is EAC, SADC, and COMESA, it's important to note that they're proposing a free trade area, which does not include the free movement of labor and capital. In East Africa, they've recently announced a common market protocol, which does allow the free movement of capital and labor. There are information technology solutions and platforms that can be used that allow immigration authorities and security authorities to exchange information in real time in a secure environment.